Welcome back to Untethering Shame, the podcast where we dig into the hidden stories, beliefs, and emotions that hold us back and uncover the resilience and truth that sets us free. I'm your host, Kyira Wackett. Now, before we dive into today's conversation, I want to share something I'm super excited about. I'll be running a free 5-day email series called Boundaried and Brave, where we'll be exploring your relationship with boundaries, where they feel strong, where they slip, and how to step into them with clarity and courage. It's a powerful way to start practicing the very things that we talk about here on this podcast, and you can sign up for free using the link in the show notes below. You'll get a confirmation email, and we are going to get that 5-day email series rolling in the beginning of November, so make sure you sign up ahead of time. Now, speaking of boundaries and courage, today I'm joined by my dear friend and colleague, Renee Nelson, for a conversation about one of the hardest and most necessary choices that we need to make in our lives: choosing ourselves. Together, we talk about what it means to walk away from relationships, careers, and identities that no longer fit, the power of saying no without apology, and why ambivalence, settling for fine, can be more dangerous than conflict. Renee's story of trusting herself through major life changes is both vulnerable and inspiring. We also reflect on the evolving seasons of life, the fear of irrelevance, and how shame keeps us tied to expectations that aren't ours to carry. So if you've ever felt torn between what others expect and what you know is true for you, this episode will give you permission to pause, reflect, and choose yourself, even when it's hard. So let's dive in. I don't know, there's an interesting overlap with us talking about choosing ourselves and what we want and the life we're going to lead. And I think a lot about my choice to start public speaking was one of the first career pivots I made of like, this is what I want to do. And it feels so cool that we're going to have this conversation with you. Were really one of the first people that saw me and was like, I want to help you build and get on a stage.
Absolutely.
And now it's been, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah,
like,
dude, time flies.
That's crazy. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing at the level I am if it wasn't for you peeking your head up and just being like, no, you have not like in an arrogant, I think I'm better than people way, but like I can say things in a way that people can hear it. And you saw that and you gave me that. That was so, I don't even know how to put it into words. Like it was such a pivotal experience for me.
Oh, well, it was a pivotal experience for me too. I'll tell you that much. Because usually when a speaker came, I like did all my other work. And from the minute that you started talking to this small group of people who already knew you, I'm pretty sure it was all just like
everybody was invited.
That you were doing like a practice round with. From like the minute you started talking to them, I was like fully in. Like I was there. I was part of that group. And I think at one point too, I came up to you and was like, can I have the worksheet? Like I'm actually going to do this worksheet too. And I think something that like I loved about you and why I was so engaged during that session was like, you were just so relatable. You were so real and you like said it how it was instead of oftentimes, you know, speakers put on this face of like not reality, but like I'm saying this because I need to say this to you and not like because this is reality. Where you, it was just like everything was so relatable and like could tie back into any and everyone's life based on where they were in their journey. So like that's why I was just like I need to keep in communication with this girl because it was amazing.
Which I feel like there's such a similarity in what you just described in me with what I see in you. Because I feel like just a couple years before that was when I had made this decision. I mean, I had made the decision in my body many, many years prior to that, but I hadn't actually let myself acknowledge it when I was like, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be in this relationship I've been in for, I think at that time it was 7 or 8 years. I want a different life and I'm going to choose this life and fuck, does it scare me?
Yep.
And the idea of even claiming out loud, like I want to be a speaker was like, oh my gosh, all eyes are on you and you could fail. Like it feels very similar to stand-up comedy. But the moment I made those choices, gosh, there were so many people there to support it and to be in it with me. And it felt like I felt so in alignment, which is I think where the relatability came in. And what I got to witness in you from the moment I met you, I have always experienced you as the person being willing to make the harder choice that other people are going to have a reaction to, a judgment about, maybe a pressuring against, because you have been willing to choose yourself every time. And not, I don't even know why I feel like I need to clarify this. I think this is the bias that it's like, well, choosing yourself is selfish and bad.
Yep.
It isn't fuck the world. It's I am not going to lose myself in being something that everybody else is okay with and says that I'm good enough for. And that, to me, like having that person represented, because every time I'd go on stage and I had you on the back end, I'm like, I never feel like I have to perform for her because she's not performing for me. And so it's crazy that you had that same experience of me when like, that's all I see in you is this fierce fighter for her authentic self.
It's literally crazy to think of like, you know, a full circle. Because obviously like that's exactly how I viewed you. And like every time I knew I had an event with you or I was going to get to see you or you were going to be in town, like whatever the case may be, like I was just so excited because I do feel like we're very relatable in that. And I feel like, you know, you and I have been through similar experiences when you talked about a relationship, when you talked about a job, that like, not only can we relate, but I feel like all of this is relatable to others in one way or another as well. Yeah. And being able to have someone who has maybe been there in the same spot that you've been in, or maybe been there, but like it looked totally different. Even having that, like, I feel like goes a very far way.
Well, and I'm curious for you, because again, I only got to meet you at this point where I saw you very solid in that. Were you always that way, like from childhood on, where you knew you and you didn't lose yourself?
I would love to ask my mom that or my dad and be like, Ma, Dad, like, how would you answer this?
Yes.
Because to be honest, like, I don't know. I will say the whole, like, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think a lot of these life events that I've occurred, relationships, jobs, all of that has helped me become the confident, fierce self that you talk about now. And a lot of that came with making some really hard decisions. And I would say, you know, if you talked to me 20 years ago, how I held myself versus how I hold myself today would look very different. And I did a lot of things in college because I thought that's what I had to do. Or because I, you know, knew someone that they were going to look at me differently if I didn't do X, Y, and Z. Where I feel like I'm now, you know, have that confidence to actually be who I am, to put my foot down. Sometimes it's important to not just say, okay, and like, okay, let's dig further into that. Like, why? And so really kind of learning that, I feel like has been a journey for me, but I feel like just like having that self-awareness that I have now, I'm able to show up as a better person.
Well, it's interesting. I just listened to this clip off of an interview that talked about ambivalence and ambivalence in relationships, or ambivalence in our life in general, being a much more problematic thing than big negative emotions. So if we talk about a relationship, conflict and fighting is ultimately, obviously there's outliers of abuse and things like that, but like on a general day-to-day life, fighting with your partner is less scary or problematic than ambivalence with your partner or in a friendship. And so I think a lot about the like, okay, I guess, you know, I'll keep that speaker on. I'll do this thing. I'll keep showing up and doing this day to day. Like, it's fine. And you keep selling yourself on it's fine. And for most of us growing up, I mean, we were taught if you can just find a place to fit in and meet these metrics, you'll be happy because you'll be successful. And so I feel like there's this piece of realizing, at least it sounds like for you, maybe in college, maybe right after college, of like, it'd be easy for me to be ambivalent, and I would be, for all intents and purposes, fine.
Yep.
But there's a danger in that I'm starting to sense, and you were willing to turn and listen to the part of you saying, no, don't do that. Whereas I think a lot of people, the fear of listening to that part of their brain is so big that they stop themselves and they keep trying to convince themselves to be okay with fine. And so how did you decide ambivalence isn't my goal? I want to thrive.
It was hard. It was really fucking hard. Like I won't lie. It was very hard, and it was definitely something that, you just don't say, okay, like, this is the route I want to go. Like there's so much outside noise that you're taking into perspective. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has something that they want to share with you or whatever the case may be. And I think like really, diving deep into, and from a young age, my parents always said, just don't settle, whether that's in a relationship, whether that's in a job, whatever the case may be, just don't settle. That has like really stuck with me. As you know, I was in long-term relationship. We were engaged, and I was the one that, I don't want to say called it off, but was like, hey, we need to figure our shit out before we plan a wedding. And I don't think we should be trying to figure our shit out and plan a wedding at the same time. Like those two things just don't really go hand in hand. And in all honesty, like looking back at it, I feel like with where I am in my life now and where he was in his life at the time, like we could be perfect for each other right now. A lot of it is like timing. There's just so much to relationships and timing in life and all of the above. So it's like so hard to say, but we were at that time just in very different points in our life. Like I had just graduated college. I wanted to travel. I wanted to explore. I wanted to party. Like I was still trying to figure out who I am and which route I wanted to go in life and what my career looked like, where he was a few years older than me, has went through the phase that I was in now, was very ready to have a house, have a dog, have kids, settle down. And so I think just like the timing of it all and not seeing eye to eye on a lot, kind of was the factor that was like, hey, let's take a step back. And like I said, it was very hard. It was very hard for a long time. And it was the best. I also look at where I am today in my life, in my career, and I wouldn't be here had I stayed in that relationship. And it's nothing against him. It's more so just I knew that like certain cups were not being filled because of this relationship. And I was not okay with that.
Yeah. And I think there's this having to actually ask yourself, what does a fulfilling life look like, not just now, but in the long run? And sort of oppositely, not just in the long run, but now also. And how do I find balance in both of those? And I think the tricky part for you is that you had this thing, this relationship. You also had a job that you were really successful in right away. You were basically on a pedestal to everybody around you being like, that's what I'm supposed to have. That's what I want. I want the partner. I want the successful job. I want all of these things. It was like you hit the jackpot, crossing off all these things on your checklist, which makes sense because you are such a high achieving doer person that you would be able to attain success very rapidly. But then you basically did the thing that everyone's like, oh my gosh. And you're like, no, I think I'm good. I'm going to leave that because it's not actually what's right for me. And so I still think about this client that I had that ended this long-term relationship. She was in her mid-20s and she knew it was the right thing. Like she knew ultimately leaving this relationship was the best thing for her. And she's like, but I just wish I could let go of the thought that now I'm behind everybody my age because I'm supposed to have this at this age. And you left a very well-established organization with your career trajectory. Yes, there's probably a ceiling on where you could go at some point, but you were very good and very rapidly successful. People wanted you. You were able to perform at that 110%. And you're like, but I don't think it's going to get me where I want. I'm going to join a startup that may or may not have legs, and we'll see where that goes. And like same with this relationship, I'm going to actually call time out. And then I'm going to do the thing and I'm going to walk away and be like, and I may or may not find a relationship like that again, where there is somebody that wants to settle down and have kids and do all those things. And your willingness to say, but not only Renee right now, but Renee 10 years from now deserves me not to settle. And that's hard. I mean, that had to feel very lonely because I could imagine even if your parents were saying, don't settle, whether it was them or other people, when it came time to you not settling, their fear and anxiety probably also came up for you as well.
I've also heard sometimes doing the hardest thing is the best thing. And I think that has too stuck with me through it all. And, talking about my job and my career, I was at AmFam for 7.5, 8 years. And you get to the point in your career where you're everyone's go-to. So they have a question about Dream Bank. They have a question about X, Y, and Z, whatever the case may be. Like you're just everyone's go-to, which is a great feeling. It's also terrifying. It's just kind of something that you get used to. And so, whether we're talking relationships or we're talking career change, like starting back at zero is really fucking hard.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of courage. And going back to what you said too, I'm doing this for me, whether it's the right thing or not, I don't know, but like, I don't know until I go.
Yes.
And for me, like with my career, I loved what I was doing. I loved the people that I was working with. Like I still am in contact with them, with you often. And they're people that I look up to and will always be in contact with. I just knew for me, like my cup was not being full.
Yeah.
And yes, I may have been good at what I did and was giving what may look like to you 110%.
Yes.
And for me, I was like, I'm tired of this.
Yes.
Yeah, it looks like I'm giving 110%, but like, I really got to put on that 110%, where I feel like when you find something that you like and you enjoy, you don't have to try to do that 110%. It just comes.
Yes.
And so I think for my first few years, like that's just how it was. And then it slowly just kind of started going down. And that's when I was like, yeah, let's leave a Fortune 500 company. Like I'm going to join a startup and be one of 40 people. I'll tell you, that was very scary as well. Like I said, too, you don't know till you go.
So I've learned that I get dopamine hits and they feel like somebody put Pop Rocks off in my brain, and I'll get these like they're just like tingly little pieces. And I think when you said that, there's a part of me that got so charged by that because I think oftentimes, I mean, it's the same. You've seen me now. I've talked about boundaries. I've talked about self-care. Like we've done all the things together.
Yep.
The issue is never that people don't know what to do. They stop themselves from doing it. It's their internal dialogue. It's their fear.
Yes.
It's their emotional reactions and the stories that they're telling themselves because of that. And a lot of that we know is tied to shame and this idea that they're not going to be good enough. They're not going to be worthy. But I think that big thing is the willingness to jump. And I think one thing that you have that many people don't believe that they have, which is very different than they don't have it, is the ability to be okay after they jump. And I think that piece, you had no clue of knowing whether or not it was going to work out. And it wasn't like you got lucky. You had to work really hard on the internal stuff. Who do I want to be? What does a fulfilling relationship look like? How do I not get in a relationship with someone where I'm performing again? What do I want in my career? What excites me? How do I need to set boundaries so that I can be the go-to person, but I don't have to be? And so it's a lot of work and investment, but you also trusted that if it didn't work out, you would be okay because you, Renee, would figure it out. Not, I'm going to jump and then the whole world is completely going to end and everything is going to suck. And now what did I do? And I should just stay here where it's safe, even though it's predictably shitty. And I'm just going to tell myself I'm fine for the rest of my life.
You nailed it. All of those things went through my brain when I was making these choices.
Yeah.
Like I wasn't just like, yeah, I'm going to jump and see where I end up. I mean, I was sitting there making pro-con lists and, going to the, well, what if?
Yep.
What if this? What if that? Like, what if this doesn't work out? And it's also the fear of the unknown. And that's scary. Like a lot of this stuff is very scary and it's filling a void or like I said, the what ifs that like can oftentimes take over when making big decisions like this.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important to hone in on what you're feeling. I feel like oftentimes there's that gut feeling, whatever that gut feeling may be to you, there's oftentimes another feeling that you are like, something's not right, or,
Yeah.
I'm ready to take the chance, whatever the case may be. And so I think like honing in on that is really important. And also, I mean, I have a phenomenal support system. And I think just having that, which I am extremely fortunate, like I have amazing parents, an amazing brother, family, friends, coworkers, even though they didn't want me to go, they also wanted me to succeed. And
Yeah.
I think being able to have that and know that, yes, I'm leaving, but like I still have them in my corner when are really far away.
Yeah. I still think about there was an event that we had to do, not had to do, we got to do it after it was part of the Brava women's
Yep.
conference that they had.
Yep.
And there were a few of us that were in that Women to Watch group that got to speak for a few minutes. And I don't remember what was going on that this came out, but I feel like it's the most poignant thing I've ever said to myself, which was, and now I like teach this to Everly every day. And it was this realization that I can stand in the light without casting a shadow on anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about it also in the context of choosing ourselves. I think sometimes what you just said is key, that I didn't burn any bridges. You making a choice for yourself was about you. Other people were going to choose to take it however they wanted to and filter it through their own experience, but it wasn't about them. And so I think one thing that people forget, because you're right, you do have a phenomenal support system. Not everybody has that level of support, particularly from caregivers. I think having supportive parents from the beginning is key, but we forget that there's also a lot of data and having people around that we don't feel safe making those choices in, because everything feels personal. That is some of the most important information we can collect to say, gosh, we need to develop a different support system. If every time I'm going to do something for me, my friend, my mom, my partner only thinks about it, about how it affects them, I'm not being seen. I am choosing to be in the shadow to put light on them, which then means I am eventually going to die out. I am going to become a shell of myself, and I will resent them in this relationship, or they will end up resenting me when I can't live up to the expectations they have. And so I feel like I had to realize that, when I left my long-term relationship, where I remember telling Jordan, I know when I end this relationship, I will lose all of my friends. And he was like, I don't know, like, is that not that he questioned me, but more like, that feels really extreme. And I was like, no,
I know.
I know this is what's going to happen.
Yep.
Because the reason I selected to stay in this relationship was the community feeling of like,
Yep.
I grew up feeling so unstable. I just wanted something where nobody ever leaves. So the minute that I'm going to choose to do something different, they are going to leave me because it rejects the norms of how they exist. And so realizing that whether I was in a relationship with Jordan or not, that was so unhealthy, that I was around people where I felt like I had to choose them to continuously be worthy of being picked. And I feel like yes, you had some privilege with that, but you also had to roll the dice in some of these instances too, to be like, will they still show up for me? Are they still going to, what are mom and dad going to say when I'm like, I'm actually calling off my engagement? Because that does feel different than them being like, right, never settle, but also, yay, you're happy. And like, you're doing all these things and we're planning a wedding. And so there is this willingness to risk vulnerability and to hopefully have people show up. But if they don't, to also view that as like, what great information that I deserve to find people that actually do want me to be happy, not that want me to perform.
That's really hard because you don't know how people are going to react. When I went to my manager and said, yeah, I'm going to leave. And she was like, you're what? And I was like, yeah, like, I think I need to. And, I don't know what was going through her head at that time. I don't know how she was reacting, responding. And again, going back to me telling my parents too, even that conversation that I had with my parents, and I will never forget the day that I drove over to their house to have this conversation with them. I think I cried more than I talked because that's how, it was very hard and it was very emotional. And I, too, going back to your point, I didn't know how they were going to react.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were going to say like, you're doing what? Like,
Right.
why are you doing this? Instead of, okay, let's figure this out together. Or,
Right.
you know, like we got to do what's best for you. Because it definitely could have gone one of two ways. That's the other scary part is you don't know.
Yeah.
And you don't know what other people are feeling or how they're responding or how they're going to react when they hear certain news. And so, you know, really just going back to like being okay with your decisions. And I think you'll be working on that for the rest of your life. I mean, that's something that I will be working on. And I think a lot of people could relate is like being okay with making those hard decisions and not worrying so much about, okay, well, if I do this, so and so is going to be mad at me.
Right.
Okay, well, I'm not going to stay in a relationship just because my friend is going to be mad at me for calling off a wedding. Like that's not serving me any good. That's not serving my partner any good. And so really being okay doing what's best for you. And it's hard.
Yeah. Well, and I think about it for so many people, it's those like bigger ticket pieces. It's maybe changing careers or getting a divorce. I have several people in my life who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s that have gotten divorced recently. And I feel like that idea of choosing themselves, we seem to have this, I don't know, it's weird. It feels like we use age against ourselves no matter how old we are. Like when we're young, it's like, but then you'd have to start over again.
Absolutely.
And you're behind and everybody's running. And then when you're older, it's like, well, you don't have that much time left. And now you have to start over again. So the story seems to be the same. There's this piece that I've noticed as we're talking feels like the subtle performance. And it's definitely something I'm working on letting go of. The bigger ticket items I feel really good in. Like I am in a relationship that I feel so seen, safe, and heard in that I want to continue to do the hard things with. I love my daughter. I love being her mom. I feel really solid in my decision. I don't want any other kids. I feel
one and done.
I am very good with this. I love my career. I love everything about how I've made these pivots.
Yep.
Where I'm having to learn how to deal with my own dialogue. And I think the fear of what other people are going to say and think are these kind of small ways of integrating these parts of myself. Because when we met, I was like, I'm going to fucking be Brene Brown. I want to be on every stage. I want to travel around the world. I want to be paid a lot of money to just get up and speak. Like if somebody hands me a microphone any day of the week, I love it. I just want to be up there talking to people and ideally giving them a space to feel seen. Like that lights me up. Yep. But now I'm also lit up by watching Everly, who's going for her orange belt on Friday. And I had to miss her first Taekwondo class and she started 4 months ago. And I almost cried the other day. Like, and again, I go every single week, twice a week to all of these things. Like I missed one. But it was like, I don't want to miss a single moment because that lights me up. Like watching her completely like push herself and get scared and tell her instructor out loud, I'm scared to do this, and then do it anyways because she feels safe. And so then I have to deal with, I can't be at every Taekwondo practice and travel the world and be on stages. And if I'm going to pick the thing to give up, and I can't, work out the way that I want or eat the way that I want or hang out with Jordan because his schedule's all over the fucking place. I can't have all of those things and also be like jet setting to go speak on stages. It just won't happen. So now what I'm having to realize is choosing myself means not giving up a part that doesn't fit for me. It's grieving that I'm giving up a part that doesn't fit in the collective life that I want. And that part feels like a new level of this, like choosing myself, where I'm having to be like, it's the same way I felt when I gave up medicine, where I was crying in the car telling my mom, but I don't want people to think it's because I couldn't do it. Like I could be a fucking doctor if I wanted to be. And it's the same with this, where I have this fear that by choosing myself, which is like being able to like make those protein bars that we were just talking about before we hit record and like enjoy meal prepping and cooking with my kid and going to Taekwondo, but also like feeling like I can get up on stages or do this podcast or be that person that can allow my clients to be seen, and I can enjoy being with my husband. I can't do this other part. And that part feels like I'm feeling hot as I'm saying that out loud. Like I haven't figured that part out yet. And it's interesting that that feels harder when it seems way less bold, but it feels so big. Like it feels like I don't want anyone to reduce me to think, but she couldn't get on that stage. And at the end of the day, it shouldn't fucking matter if anyone thinks I could get on the stage or not, but it feels like it does.
I want to watch Taekwondo. Like that's incredible.
I will send you some videos of her sparring.
I need to know how she got into this. Like that's incredible. And I think after just listening to you talk, something that I picked up on was how all of this changes with life. You know, and like 10 years ago when you didn't have Everly and like you guys were living in Madison and you could jet set to go speak on stage, you wanted to be Brene Brown at that time, you know, and that's where you were in your life. Now, you know, grieving some of these things that you're not able to do, it's not because you can't do it. Like, absolutely, you could go jet set and speak and be a Brene Brown. Like, you're my Brene Brown. Who are we kidding? But I think just, you know, where you are in life and the journey of life that you're on, like those expectations that we talk about, not only for you, but for your family, for society, all of the above, like all of that changes. And I think that too can be really hard for people to understand and see of like, okay, well, now I'm in a different journey of life right now. And although this, you know, speaking on stage and jet setting, like, yeah, that lights me up. Like I want to do that. And that's what fills my cup. Well, so does staying at home, making protein bars, you know, going to Taekwondo, like that also fills my cup. And so it's finding that balance that you oftentimes talk about as to, you know, where you are in your life right now and how that may look different as to where you were 10 years ago and how it may look different in 10 years. That's something that we oftentimes overlook. I think society too, I mean, granted, I'm 31 years old. I'm still single. Like, that's hard. And I think, you know, we oftentimes are comparing ourselves. Like, I just was at this event that was all about comparison and actually made me think a lot about you. Like, we're always comparing ourselves to the person next to us. I'm now in sales. Like, sales is a very competitive field, and we're comparing ourselves to our peers as to, you know, well, how far are they through to their quota? How many deals have they closed this month? How many this? How many that? Oh, well, she can lift 100 pounds. I'm only lifting 50. I go to the gym every day. Like, we're just constantly comparing ourselves. Freaking Instagram, Facebook, like social media society does not help in the sense that, like, I'm 31 years old. 10 years ago, I thought when I was 31 years old, I was going to be married. Probably should have 2 kids by now. I should be in a house. Like, all of that stuff has been thrown out the door, and I'm okay with it, with where I am in my life right now. You know, there's definitely days where I'm like, yeah, I want to be in a relationship. Yeah, I want kids. I mean, I have a condo, but like, yeah, I want a bigger house, you know, and we're always putting that horizon further past us of like, you want more, you want bigger, you want better, you want to be in a relationship, the best relationship. Like, we're just constantly putting so much pressure on ourselves to be more, to be better, to speak on a stage in front of how many thousands people. And so, you know, I think it does go back to where we are in our life right now and setting those expectations for us based on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you just hit so beautifully is this idea of all those different variations of self and being okay with the reality that we can't be and do everything at any given time. And so what does that look like? And I think oftentimes once you have a kid, I feel like everybody bookmarks everything based on the age of your child. But in reality, it has nothing to do with having kids. It's just, what does life look like for you at that point? And I think what you pointed out is this idea that we're constantly up against this metric of a clock. And so if we're comparing against people, usually it's people are close to or at our age, and we're looking at the norms and we're looking at that mixed with the bias of what we were taught would make us happy and what we're supposed to do. And the reality being, like, I think about people and the jobs that they have and the lives that they lead. And that would be miserable. Like, I think the zoo is amazing. I don't want to work at a zoo. I think everything about that would be scary, disgusting, and boring. But I think it's incredible. The idea of like, what if I could touch a red panda one day? So cool. The actual job doesn't fill me up. Same as like, I don't know. I think people that build beautiful buildings, so amazing. I don't ever want to do that. It doesn't light me up. And so it's interesting how it's like we selectively bias out the variance of what brings joy and fulfillment to be like, no, I'm actually only going to compare myself with people that have the most similarities to me and then look at all the ways that I'm failing them. So like, you're not comparing yourself against, you know, the guy that's been doing CrossFit competitions for 20 years. You're comparing yourself to a female who's probably a similar age and body size to you going, well, what the fuck? I should be able to do that. Instead of looking at the context. Has she been doing this for 20 years? Is she using different supplements? Is this her job? Is she paid for this because she's actually a trainer? And it's like all those different pieces that we take out the context. And so like, what the fuck difference does it matter? And I think for me, it's like, I have always been afraid that I would be reduced to Jordan's wife or Everly's mom. And I think a big part of that was being raised by two single women who didn't have healthy male relationships and were trapped in many ways. And so I'm like, I'm never going to do that. My ex very much would have been comfortable being a stay-at-home dad where I made all the money and I, unfortunately, for all intents and purposes, would have had a lot of the power when we think about sort of our culture, the money, the say, the sway, all of that. And so it's like realizing that story, like I'm not powerless. This isn't, you're just Jordan's wife. You're just Everly's mom. You're fucking excited to be partnered with somebody that you love as much as you do and to have a kid as awesome as you have that you put work into. Like I put 15 years of investment into my marriage and 5 years of investment into this kid. And like, I'm proud of that. And if I want to choose to hang out with my kid, that doesn't mean that I couldn't speak on that stage. But for some reason, it's still that it's the comparison and also the fear of irrelevance. And I think that's a big thing is I don't want to be irrelevant. And that still puts other people in the storyline. Like irrelevant to who? I'm not irrelevant to my kid because I know that she knows I will be there every single moment. She doesn't have to question that. I would much rather her tell me what it means to feel safe than to be worried about whether or not someone thinks I could speak on a stage of 10,000 people instead of a stage of, I don't know, the 17 people that might listen to some random podcast episode I put out.
Correct. I love it. And hello to all those 17 people.
Because you matter also.
Yeah, no, I think, you know, a lot of what you're saying too can also go back to being okay and learning to say no.
Yeah.
And, you know, being okay and learning to say no, I'm actually going to leave this relationship. No, I'm going to do a career change. No, I'm actually going to put my child first rather than speaking on a stage. Like, I think there's so much power in saying no. And oftentimes that's really hard for us to see because saying yes is so easy. And if you're like me, you know, 10 years ago, and something I'm still working on today is not being that people pleaser and just saying yes to say yes because you are scared as to how they might respond, scared to how they might react. And so being able to feel comfortable saying no, feel confident saying no, and being okay with whatever that outcome may be.
Well, I think that is such an important piece, particularly as we think about kind of bringing this to a close is, you know, so where do we go from here? And I think a big part of it is that, at least in the beginning, it feels like just sort of mining for the ways and the places where we feel like we can't say no and where that ambivalence has become our norm. And, you know, I think a lot about that. I was talking to a client about that today, even where the chosen career path that her and her partner are in is really hard. And it comes with a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of moving. There's a lot of unpredictability. And oftentimes the examples that they have in their lives are really unhealthy relationships, unhealthy dynamics, one or both parents never seeing their kids. There could be money and prestige involved, but there's such a high cost. And we were talking about this idea of how sometimes we chase things and we've been chasing them for so long, we don't even ask ourselves why we're doing it anymore. And sort of pausing to be like, why do I want this? Why am I choosing this? And, I still think about my mom years ago. She had like a mini panic attack when she was visiting us and we were having like our weekly meeting. And we talk about, I think at that point, Ev was maybe like a year old, about if we should, I can't remember, something came up about finances and like if we were to get divorced. And we were starting to talk about like when we were ready to look for houses and stuff like that. And my mom like panicked and she's like, is there something wrong with you and Jordan? Like after he went to bed later, I was like, no, we're fine. Why? And she's like, you were talking about divorce. And I was like, yeah, it's a word. Like, it's fine.
You can say it out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to whisper it.
But I feel like this idea of like, sometimes we're just so afraid of things ending that we cling to them because we're just so afraid of what that means instead of being like, do I even still want to choose this? And I think what you said before, for all of us to think about, maybe I did want that. Like both of us didn't enter those relationships that we were in not wanting them. We did want them and they fit. They were wonderful and beautiful for the period of time that they served us, and then they didn't. And that's not bad on us. That's not bad on them. That's saying it's not the right fit for the me that's here now. And I'm going to choose that me, not the me 5 years ago that was the right fit for. And that's the same with our careers. That's the same with our friendships, like realizing that longevity isn't always the goal. And so I want to think about this in the context of two versions of Renee. One, I want to go back to college Renee. And I want to think about all those times where maybe you were saying yes and you weren't. And maybe even younger, Renee, you can pick the age spot. So let's start with her and the times that you weren't saying no, when you weren't choosing yourself. What do you want to tell her and or all the people listening that are in that place that Renee was in right now?
Looking back, how many ever years ago we want to go back, I felt drained. And I felt drained in the sense of I was always saying yes. And I was scared at the perception that people had on me. I was scared if I didn't win a tennis match, what that was going to look like. If I didn't get a job or if I didn't get an A on that paper that I wrote, all of that stuff, I put so much pressure on myself. And I was scared and I was drained because of how much pressure I was putting on myself, of how many times I was saying yes, just to say yes, in fear of hurting someone else's feelings, not looking at me and what was best for me, but always looking at other people. The word selfish, sometimes it's good and you have to be selfish. Mm-hmm. And I think the word selfish has a really negative feeling towards it. Oh, you're being so selfish. And in reality, I'm being selfish and I'm doing so that when I show up next, I'm showing up better and I'm more present. Because if I just keep saying yes and depleting my energy and my cup is going to be so drained, I'm not showing up as the person I want to be. And so I think, looking back 10 years and telling younger Renee, it's okay to say no. You're going to be okay saying no. And you're going to find out who your true friends are in doing so. Because your true friends and your true support system will understand that by you saying no allows you to show up in 110% moving forward. Grasping that has gotten me a very far ways.
Yeah. And I feel like that thing too of realizing that it's okay to say no. And also we are able to determine whether or not we can handle. I mean, sometimes not because we get ourselves way too burned out and then we actually do fall apart. But we're like, I can handle it. I can handle it. And we constantly assume that other people can't. And so I feel like with that, it's okay to say no. Also, it's not your responsibility to deal with their upset. around it. And so realizing, I think what you just pivoted to is selfish is, again, going back to that light piece. You're not casting a shadow on someone else. You're not being a jerk to someone else. You are saying that I have to choose me so that I can create more light and space for everybody else too, because that is who I want to be. And so if you are upset or offended by that and you are choosing to see it that way, I can't control that, nor am I responsible for your emotional reaction. And so I feel like the thing I'd piggyback on it is once you're able to see that and to say no, is to then recognize, now, how are you going to deal with the distress that other people try to make your responsibility when it's not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last question. Now let's project forward. So let's assume that Renee, in 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years, again, go where you want to, you're faced with that next piece of something doesn't fit for me. Something's not right. I don't like this anymore. And it's a different time space. It's a different boundary. It's the future that you haven't already survived and know that it will be okay. What do you want her to remember when she's coming face to face with that state and realizing that she's become ambivalent in that sense?
It's hard to think about where I may be in 3 years, in 5 years, and what that may be that I need to walk away from at that time. Going back to and kind of tying everything in, I think, leaning into your support system, whether that's friends, family, coworkers, whatever that case may be. Always having them in your corner is going to get you very far. While my corner today may look different than it looks like in 5 years, still leaning into those people and knowing that I have them to lean on is always helpful and beneficial. I would too say it's going to be okay. No matter what, it's going to be okay. It's the fear of the unknown. And sometimes doing the hardest things is the best things. And so really leaning into that and knowing that this isn't life or death. I'm props to Jordan, but I'm not no doctor. And I don't want to be a doctor. Like you said, you don't want to be a zookeeper.
Right.
I don't want to be a doctor. I can't be a doctor. These decisions are not life or death. Yes, they may come with consequences that you're going to figure out how to navigate, but it's not life or death, and it's going to be okay. And being okay with the decisions that you make and responding and reacting to them in a sense that you're okay with the decisions that you make. I think, it too goes back to attitude. And I think having a positive attitude on life, like my dad from day one has taught me how far a simple smile can go. And even if you're having a tough day, to put things in perspective and focus on your attitude, I think that can go really far as well. And so just, keeping that positive attitude, sharing a smile, surrounding yourself with those who love you and who are going to be there for you, whether that means that you're saying no to them so you can better show up for yourself, for your partner, for whoever, child. I think all of that kind of goes a far way.
To bring this full circle and think about both of us and our working out, you will never see people's distress and fear of making a wrong decision or being judged like you will if you ask people to contribute to a playlist. Because as soon as you ask somebody, I was making a playlist for an event and I'm like, tell me your top 2, give me a couple songs that really hype you up when things are hard. We were doing a hero workout, 1,000 step ups. And that's grinding. It's a mental drain. Yeah. And so you're just stepping up onto a box, up and down for an hour. Give me some songs. The fear people had about telling me their song preferences, I was like, it is a 3-minute song. Nobody cares. Just tell me what you like to listen to. I'm trying to make you feel seen. I'm holding my hand out, which is the thing you probably want more than anything. And you're so afraid. And I'm not saying I'm not that same way, but it's this realization, when you say it's not life or death, it's not. I would be afraid to tell people what I wanted for dinner if we were all going to go out to eat dinner because I'm afraid I'd make the wrong choice. It's fucking dinner. We eat 3 meals a day, 21 meals a week. It's one of those. It's not even 5% of the time of eating a meal during the week. It's such a minor thing. And so I think for all of us to stop allowing our anxiety to make everything feel so big and to trust that you don't have to know it's going to be okay to know that you are going to be okay, and stop fixating on the circumstances versus the self. We knew this was going to happen. We could talk for another 7 hours. Like we said, we're going to have to talk about protein bars and probably CrossFit and some other elements in the future. But for people that just want to follow you and to connect with you in any way, where is the best place for them to reach out to you?
Career-wise, I'm active on LinkedIn. Otherwise, Instagram as well, which I can share my Instagram handle. Is that what you call it? I'm not no influencer, I'll tell you that much. But no, I would love to hear, other people's stories and how, this has resonated with them in some capacity. And I can't thank you enough for asking me to be part of this. It's so cool to really see the full circle. And I'm so happy and honored that we have stayed in touch and that I have you in my corner. So Kyira, seriously, thank you for everything.
Oh gosh, you are so welcome. And it was interesting to me when you were describing your corner and thinking about who's consistently going to be there. And as it changes, from the time I started this shift and this move and choosing myself from a career standpoint, but honestly, in any aspect of self, I've never not felt safe. And if I needed something, I could reach out to you. And so I think going back to your mindset and your willingness to choose yourself, but to also support other people choosing themselves, it really does impact. And there's no one else I would have rather had this conversation with than someone I've gotten to watch choose herself while she's empowered me to keep choosing myself. And so listeners, I will have all of those contact points down in the show notes for you, so you can make sure that you can reach out to Renee either on a personal level, on a professional level, whatever works best for you. Of course, you'll find links down there to all of my other resources and information if you want to learn a little bit more from me or set up a consult call. But for now, just pause, take a second to just decide one thing you're taking with you from today. You don't have to do it all. We don't have to fix it all. It's just an invitation to think and to reflect. And so pick that one thing and walk with it with you this week. And we will see you back here next Sunday.